after show for Preacher. It's season 2, episode 8, titled Holes. We can't wait to break the whole thing down for you guys. We'll see you in just 1 second.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
It's loud. Oh,
yeah.
Driving.
The boys, we should have had The Boys Are Back in Town playing because the whole panel's back together. Yeah, right? All right.
Applaud yourself.
Raise the roof on that.
Hey.
I never raise the roof. I should never do that again.
Welcome, guys. It's AFTERBUZZ TV. We're here. It's Monday. We're talking Preacher. We're officially more than halfway through the season now.
Wow. Oh, really? Already?
Yeah, 8 episodes.
Yeah.
I think it's only 13, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. So we got some more Grail. We got a bunch of hell. We got all kinds of funny hell jokes, which I was a big fan of this episode.
I was ready for hell.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So it's AFTERBUZZ TV. We're going to break down this episode for you guys. But before we do, let's introduce the crew back on the far side of the table. We've got Matt Marr.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Marr. You can find me on all my social things at the Matt Marr, 2 T's, 2 R's.
What's up, kids? You can find me on social media at DogLikeNate. Nate Miller here again. Excited to talk about some Preacher.
Woo.
On my right.
Dave.
Oh, it's me! It's Dave Child! You can find me at Dave Child on the Twitters and the Instagrams and DaveChild.com. I'm Dave Child. Good to be here.
I hope somebody's like, I'm going to check out this AFTERBUZZ thing. They tune in one time and they just see this, and that's all of you they ever see. So in their mind, they're just like sure of who you are. Oh, here we go. The boys are back in town.
There we go.
Nice.
I'm glad it's the Thin Lizzy version and not the Everclear version, because the Thin Lizzy version is a lot
Yeah.
better. I'm Ben Bateman. You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media, Twitter or Instagram. Let's talk a little bit of Preacher, guys. And of course, before we do that, if you guys want to leave a rating or review on iTunes,
Please.
stay high in the standings.
Please.
We provide free content. We will always provide.
Write something. Don't start. Just
Yeah.
write. If you say the boys are back, write
The
something.
boys are back now.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Whatever.
Write it.
Whatever
Just
you
talk
wanna
about how
do.
pretty my eyes are, or whatever. Just
They are.
Right, whatever.
They
Yeah.
are. I go for that.
I wasn't gonna say that because I think we all know that about Dave. But
You have long eyelashes. I'll
if
say
you want
that.
to point that
Yeah.
out, it's
Yeah.
cool. So, anyway, guys, let's talk about this episode. We got a lot of hell. We got a lot of
hell.
A lot of arse face. There were some really nice touches to hell in this episode. I
Yeah.
thought I really enjoyed that. What was the name of the candy bar? Like Zanzu or something?
Zagnut?
Zagnuts.
I think it's an actual, like, candy bar.
I was
Yeah.
trying to think.
Yeah.
When I heard it, I was like, does that mean something? I was trying to, and I couldn't.
It looked like a candy bar. That's the kind of thing that I'm sure that Seth and Evan and Sam, they all probably hate that candy bar.
I bet it's like a Canadian candy bar.
Something that like everyone hates, and it's like an inside
Oh,
joke. And
yeah.
it's only Zagnuts.
That's what somebody should tell us in the chat. I should.
Only
Google that.
oh, I gotta get the chat
Yeah.
up. You got the chat going?
I do, yeah.
Okay, good. Tell us on the chat if you know what that candy bar
Zagnut
is.
looks
Zagnuts are.
Yeah, Zagnuts.
Yeah.
That's the one. So that was pretty wonderful. And then
Yeah.
the whole duct
Duct tape,
as
toilet paper.
gimmick. I thought that was funny. I like that those jokes, the jokes like that are becoming. I feel like every episode
Yeah.
there's 4 or 5 of them now that they get tossed in. That are just like a nice little wink and a nod.
Yeah,
That's that Seth Rogen humor.
and it's also this invention of hell. What hell looks like is just not in the comics at all.
No.
Hell looks pretty much like hell, like you would see in a children's history, like a prayer book in the comics. This is very different, and I love to see like their version of it. As someone who read Sandman and all those other comics and Good Omens, and where people are looking at hell from different perspectives, this is a great version of it. And also, we have to talk about the Cape Fear opening of Arseface.
You get the Tracy tattoo
With the big Tracy tattoo on his back. Oh, that was great.
It's pretty wonderful.
I love how
nice
like
homage.
we watch it with the closed captions here, just so we make sure we get everything. And the first thing it says is Cape Fear music. Just like really hammers home the like. All right, we get the reference.
Are we about ready for another Cape Fear remake? We probably are, right? 91 was the last one. I mean, that was 26 years ago now.
Let's not ask for remakes.
Thank you.
They just keep
I don't think
coming.
we need to encourage it. It'll
Yeah,
just
it's true.
happen.
It just seems like the kind of movie that by now Christian Bale would have played the role or something like that, right?
There's, I think they're like rebooting ER again.
Yeah,
What you were
everything.
saying about hell, though.
Yeah.
Yes, let's talk about hell.
It's funny because I feel the same way with like a lot of the depictions and stuff that we've seen, and also like within the comic. But I feel like it could still be the same hell because we haven't really seen like where you know, when you get sent to hell, where all those people are. We always see, like, you know,
Right.
where Lucifer's hanging out, or, you know, major
Right.
characters where that stuff is happening. And especially when when we get that camera pan tilt up and you see, like, that there's no roof above them, that they're in this kind of, like, pit, and that
Yeah.
there's all these other, you know,
Yeah.
looks like other prisons and stuff. Like, it's kind of like, I mean, it gave me a feeling of, like, there's a lot more to
Right.
hell than just the prison that keeps, you know, the people there.
True,
Which I
yeah.
think is cool because I want to see more of it.
Well, and Hitler, I think, definitely was adding to that too, of telling Eugene, like, you don't even know.
Yeah.
Because he was a
Level.
janitor,
Yeah.
so he knows.
Well, that's
makes
really
sense.
cool. It really does.
Yeah.
Especially they were really hammering home, like, you're gonna get punished if you do good
Right.
thing, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
helping
yeah.
someone if they trip, or
Don't they pick up the
it's-
marker?
yeah, which is interesting. So the power thing, I guess we know now for sure,
Yeah.
is the evil is what powers that.
Well, no,
Because- so then
I get it that they have a certain amount of power that's geared towards the population of that block of hell.
yes.
So that population has to match, like, who's supposed to be there.
But I think
because
it's-
otherwise the power's strained, and that's why it breaks down.
But I think what was insinuated is that part of the power arrangement is that the bad people that are there, whether it's the bad energy or the evil energy or them being bad to each other, that
Right.
creates the power and that creates the balance that makes things normal. Because that's why when Hitler got there, he's like, oh, they gave me all this stuff because they expected him to come in
Yeah,
and
right.
take
Yeah.
control of the block and be super evil and stuff, and that would be good for them.
bring
But
a lot of
instead, he
evil
came
in.
in and he's being all quiet. He's reading
Well,
cross books.
I
mean,
read
we'll
it
find
as
out.
I read it as like, okay, once if they're able to get Eugene to the point where he is broken down enough that he belongs in hell, that he's like evil enough to belong in hell, then they'll be able to get the power that they need.
Okay.
Because then he deserves to be there and he's accounted for. And
Okay.
it kind of is like,
Interesting.
okay, so that person deserves to be there, so they'll get enough power.
There's like
I just wonder,
barometer
like-
that once they
Yeah.
pass, then they're like, okay.
It's like right now, it's like someone's leeching off of the system because they're not. It hasn't been planned for them to be there. But
Right.
if they
Or
get
they're
them to be,
overcapacity.
yeah, if they bring them into the system, if they're like, oh, we'll make you instead of being a mobile home that's parked outside of a house and is taking from the house, if we make that mobile home a house, then it's able to patch into the system.
It
I
was-
think that's what's happening.
It was very Wachowskian, the layout of the whole thing, because you know you have all these people. I mean, even when they panned up, it reminded me a lot of the pods in the Matrix, the circular
Right.
nature of it. And you have all these people, and they're like sort of little pods, and all of the power of hell is coming from these people that are trapped in these
Yeah.
little pods.
Right.
You know, definitely had that.
That was part of why I interpreted that way, of that them
Yeah, that was coming from
reliving that thing over and over again is
Yeah.
like, it's like the hamster in the wheel, the emotions or whatever it is.
But that
that's
doesn't make it. It means like but why is it breaking down? Because that should
because
be.
he's like a contamination.
Yeah.
He's not supposed
I
to
think
be
so,
there.
too.
He's
Right.
not. I mean, Eugene is not supposed to be in hell. He's just not.
Yeah.
Like, as his soul is just not. It's not. It's
So
like
why
not a
don't they
fit.
just kick him out if they know?
They don't know it's him.
Well,
Yeah,
they-
but do you
yeah.
think so? Do you don't
I-
believe Hitler?
I actually I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I think Hitler
Yeah.
might be right, but I also I don't know.
Because I think this is terrible to say on the show. I think I'm with Hitler on this, where
Where you think if he turns himself in that he's gonna get punished? Or
yeah,
something, or
well, I
something.
think I think they'll break him down until he's.
But
like,
my question is, can you be made? Can your soul be turned
Evil?
to an evil soul while you're in hell? Is there something you can do
They're
in
still
hell?
pooping.
that's like,
I mean, I'm gonna go and say that's probably just one of the bases of hell, or bases, I don't know, of hell. Like
Yeah.
like even if you're evil, they want you to be, and we saw that with Hitler. Like if you're evil, they're like, okay, now you're gonna be like evil prime because you're
Yeah.
in hell. And so I think with anyone, they want to make anyone evil, even people that aren't, whether people that were supposed to be there and the people that aren't.
Yeah.
Because because that goes against, to me, when I'm looking, that goes against human nature, kind of, as we look at in so many stories that we love. It's all about the redemption of human nature.
Right.
And hell is like, no, there's no redemption here at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've always imagined with hell that, like,
I'm glad that this conversation went deep quick, everybody. I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
this is part of what this is the whole like point
Basis of the
this
show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
even
yeah.
just the story is it's supposed to make you think about these types of
Yeah.
things.
I've always imagined that in hell, like if they got a good soul in hell, they would consider that to be a bonus. Like it would be a win if they were able to get
Yeah.
a good soul into hell,
Yeah.
because like they won, they corrupted some, they somehow managed to get one of the
they
good
have,
ones.
yeah, but they have to corrupt it in order to make
Yeah,
it
like,
fit into
we
hell.
got Mother
that's-
Teresa party.
and
yeah,
that's-
exactly.
That's where the line is blurry because he wasn't corrupted. He was sent there in a way that's not supposed to happen.
Yes.
It broke the rules.
Which is now-
that's why like he's like it's like how did you even get in the door? Like how did you make it past security
Right.
and get checked in
Well-
and get your own room? Like we're like why
Yeah.
We also have to make the obvious connection that it's there to the prison system because that's why they're setting this up so it is like a prison,
Right.
Because of that sense of people who often go to prison. The big problem with the whole prison system
they
is
become institutionalized?
it's institutionalizing
Yeah.
them. It's making them worse, and it's not actually redeeming anyone.
No. There's
So
no rehabilitation.
It's not about rehabilitation or being redeemed. It's about fitting them into a mold that makes them
suits their
even worse
purposes.
and fits the business of the prison system. And the business of hell is like the business of the prison system. And that's kind of what they're building off of, which is great. It's
Yeah.
like an awesome way to view hell while being like a nod towards a bigger thing that you wouldn't expect from a show that has like, you know, a hand job in it in hell or
Do you
in a
guys-
previous episode, all the stuff that Star was doing.
Oh, that was. I love that.
Do you
Yeah.
guys? It was my favorite.
That was
show.
supremely the hand job moment
Yeah.
in this episode was
Yeah.
just
It was
incredible.
It was like
Yeah.
straight out of the book.
Do you guys find that as bizarre as I do that they like have elected to basically make Hitler like a? They've made Hitler like a pretty like
The good
redeemable-
guy?
Kinda, yeah. You like kind of root for Hitler in this show.
He's Morgan Freeman in
No,
the
I actually
Shawshank
wrote,
Redemption.
I wrote like Hitler is a savior.
Yeah.
Like Hitler, but also too, if you think about it, what is smart about it, in that like, what else like more evil can Hitler do? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of he's done it, so it's kind of like there's only way for this as a writer. I'm like probably the only way for this character is to go is up, you know.
His flashback scene when
True.
you see him in like that restaurant is like one of my favorite scenes of the
Yeah.
show. It's just the most anticlimactic.
Oh,
just,
I
like,
hope we see more.
I
do
so
too.
I
I do
really
too.
want to know what he is because the whole point of that is it has to be your biggest regret and your biggest moment of turning. So something happened that he regrets more than the millions
Yeah.
and thousands of
Yeah.
people that he's killed.
Well, and why is he helping Eugene? Like, is there going to be an ulterior motive too? Like, he really is just conning him.
There must be. 'Cause
I think that's what it is.
I don't think that they're gonna give us Hitler and just end the show with Hitler being like a pretty redeemable character.
I think they might. I don't think they'll do it in a way that'll make it seem like, and that's why we're saying Hitler's good. I don't think they're gonna do that.
Well,
but I think they're doing what you were saying about how the only way for that character is up. But I think he's going to be like, it would be nice if he's kind of, but I definitely deserve to be in hell. Like he doesn't want to leave because he knows his place. That might be an interesting way of taking it.
I've referenced this conversation a few times, but when I got to ask Seth about this a few weeks ago, when you guys decided to put Hitler in the show, did you guys like list out all the options and say like, oh, is there a better option than Hitler? And he's like, well, there's definitely a better option than Hitler.
Yeah, exactly.
There's always a better option than Hitler.
always a better option than
That's pretty
Hitler.
funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where we open up. We get all of this prison system stuff. We do see Eugene's handjob hell, which is pretty hilarious. And
Yeah, well, what happens is, so he gets put in the hole, and what happens there is he doesn't just see the version of his hell and his regret played out in front of him. He sees something even worse. He sees something that didn't happen, but if it did, it would be worse. So
Right.
it's ratcheted up like a couple of knots.
Well, which happens directly after the most joy he could have.
I love
Right.
I love that it's one of my favorite moments ever, like in any kind of comedy, when the girl's like you hear like the toilet flushing. It's like, oh, there's someone else here. It's not
Yeah.
like there's someone else here and they just open the door. It's like they've just taken a dump and that's what's been happening. It's like always the most satisfying like rubbins. Also,
Yeah.
what was so great in that scene to me is like the subtle comedy of while all of it was happening, it wasn't like anything
You
graphic.
see her movement.
You just see the movement.
Which we're not going to do here. I just think I started
doing it. Yeah. You just see the circular movement and like the focus in her eyes as she's looking at him. It was just priceless. That's the stuff that I just die laughing.
Right.
It's just his performance too and delivery of the lines.
It was great.
Of the puns.
And I think there's kind of a. By the way, we'll probably have a little bit of a spoiler country at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
If people don't know, we just talk about what happens in the comic that's a bit different. And I think there's something that is building up here that I'd like to reference later in spoiler country. So
All right.
stay tuned for that if you want.
So, moving on to the other half of the episode, we've got this continuing drama going on with Cassidy, who's now we actually get his first name of Prontius.
Yeah.
For the first time, we hear him talking to somebody named Seamus on the phone. Now, is Seamus somebody that Cass has talked to before? Is that the voice from the first season who was helping with the vampire hunters on the phone?
Oh, that's a good point. I'm not sure.
I was wondering
forgot about that.
because he's on the phone in the very first episode, hiding out in the
I
bar.
feel like it is.
It feels like it would be, right?
Because I remember hearing the name.
When he's in the bar in the first episode and he shows up, he gets on the phone with somebody and he's telling him the vampire hunters were after him. I like that the vampire hunter plot is just like gone for now. We haven't seen a word of it.
I hope it comes back.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. And the guy he was talking to seemed to be some like kind of coordinator or like mentor or old friend or something, and I just have a feeling it's the same guy. I'd have to go back to the first season. Anybody in the chat, if you know or remember, let us know. But
also if it's a reference to something in the comic book, make sure to put like a little spoiler thing in front of it.
Definitely. But so we find out that his name is Prontius, which that is something as comic book readers we eventually are aware that his name is Prontius. But I was wondering how long it was before we got that.
Yeah.
And also that his father Dennis, he has this internal struggle going on, and we got another stake placed in the sand here of resenting Jesse a little bit. It continues happening every week. They throw a little curveball at us. Where
it's happening a lot. It's happening almost more than I want it to.
Yeah, me too.
Like I kind of want them to take a step back and have a bro moment.
Because every episode, and then every episode they throw another like when Tulip's like, "Hey, you want to go out?" And we're all thinking the same thing. It's like, don't go out. We all know what's going to happen if you go down this road. And he just doesn't even go there. Mm-hmm. But it's like another one of these, like, you guys are just driving us so clearly towards that outcome.
Yeah.
It's like, are we really supposed to think that's going to happen?
I mean,
I think that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, my comment was, I think kind of at that point, I just thought it was so fun and entertaining watching Hell and so sad watching real life.
Really
like, it was just,
sad.
That's what I put out. It's like everyone seemed so sad and so lost and like just disparate. Is that the word? Even like the shot where Jesse and Tulip, which I thought was a great shot, where they're sitting on the stairs and like they're at opposite ends of the stairs, kind of having this weird. It was just, all just seemed so just divided.
Yeah, and they're all in their different headspaces right now. They're not
all
together.
very selfishly thinking.
Because with Cass, he's focused on his. You see a little bit. He's so vulnerable in this episode, which is really great to see.
Yeah.
Because he is this foul-mouthed vampire, and here he just opens up his soul a little bit, and you get a sense of his past regrets. That flashback where he's with the baby Dennis and singing a song and drinking. That's the first time we see. I hope it's the first of many where we see him way back in time in like the 1940s.
It's 46 is what it said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting too. Like, do you guys like how they throw the nod of the pretty nurse winking at him and smiling at him? Because you're kind of like, he's always probably been this like handsome, confident guy, and that's why the guy on the phone says you have lots of sons, probably.
Right.
Like, he's probably just always been kind, a little bit of just like a heartthrob. His whole for like 100 years or something, he's been a heartthrob.
And he also brings up in the conversation things that he misses after becoming a vampire.
That was a great monologue.
Yeah. So he misses being on the beach, and he mentions his family too. We get a sense of his family where he has a brother.
Yep.
And
he also mentions drugs.
He also mentions how drugs hardly work for him anymore, which is how he's able to like go through that whole montage that happened a couple of episodes ago. So yeah, it's we're building more of his past, and that I love.
Well, and also too, it made me think of. I mean, this is talked about a lot in some vampire stuff, but talks about just boredom, and as far as like that is actually one of the number one reasons why people even do drugs is just boredom. And so it made me, for someone who's just starting to dig into the comics, but to see that, this makes sense to me why Cass would be would cherish his friendship with Jesse, because can you imagine if you're a bored vampire for hundreds of years and suddenly this person has this Genesis power? That's exciting.
Something he's never seen before.
That's exciting to him.
Yeah.
And so again, it was a great. I just have so much empathy for that character.
I just felt like it was strange for him to ask that of Jesse, because he was asking him to
Heal him, basically.
Heal?
'Cause,
You thought
well, I
I
saw-
thought
What
he was
did he
asking
want?
him to like put him down.
No, I didn't get that at all.
No, I didn't
See,
know if he was going to send him to heaven. I didn't know.
I thought he was asking him to like put him out
Oh,
of his
see, what I
misery
saw
or
was I
something.
realized, we don't know the limits
of Genesis.
of Genesis.
Yeah.
So what he could do is say, like, you're okay now. And is that enough? Or
don't know.
your body is healed? And is it enough to believe it? He sent someone to hell. He said go to hell, and that
I mean,
person
I would
went
say
to
a
hell.
body can't heal itself with his words, but he did send someone to hell.
Yeah. I think it was a really important moment for both characters. I agree with you, Dave.
Yeah.
I believe what Cassidy was saying is I don't know if you're able to fix him with the word,
But would
if
you
you
try?
can, would you? And I thought it was a really important moment for a couple reasons. Because A, we've seen this really selfish, reckless use of the word to this point by Jesse.
Yeah.
So the gall that he
Yeah.
would have to say to Cassidy,
Ooh,
I
that
don't
pissed me
think-
off for Cassidy.
Yeah,
He said
that made a lot
I'm
of
pissed.
sense.
I don't think that that's what this is for.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. When you're driving that stake a little further, and they're doing it every
Yeah.
episode just a little bit, and the look in Cassidy's eyes, which I really thought as an actor he played
Oh,
incredibly
I
well.
yeah, he was great.
It was so subtle, but like you could tell. You also know, like based on the fact that he would ask Jesse, because it's a pretty horrible thing to ask. Like,
Right.
you just use the power of God to like save my son, kind of.
It's not a horrible thing to ask. It's something that makes sense.
Yeah, but like,
I would ask him if I knew someone who had the power of God and my son is dying.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
You totally.
The
But I guess-
problem, I think the problem is like Jesse could have responded with, "I don't know what it would do. Like
Right.
I don't know exactly what to say, and I don't know what would do it, and I don't know if it would do it, and for all I know, I'm going to make things worse."
Yeah.
But, and you also have to remember too, it's coming from a place of where it's not like Cassidy is not powerless in the situation.
Right.
He can save him. He just doesn't necessarily want to. So he's looking to Jesse to almost save him.
Take that burden.
He wants him to save two people, yeah.
You know, because then I don't have to turn him to try to save him.
Yeah.
Well, they also keep dangling this carrot of Cassidy being relatively evil. They sort of keep giving you this like hint, not like evil in the context that he would be a villain in the story necessarily, but that he has a lot of darkness inside him, and they've done it a number
I
of
don't
times.
think they've done it really. I
you
don't
don't?
think it's there because they're setting up. I think we're seeing his vulnerability and
I
him
feel like
as a
this
person.
season much more his vulnerability.
Yeah, but what would be interesting is, and what I loved is hearing Seamus, the guy on the phone, ask what is he like? Who is this
What's
person?
his temperament? Or yeah.
What's his temperament? Because
Yeah.
you could be, if you turn, it implies that if you turn someone into a vampire, if they're a bad person, it elevates that badness.
Makes it better.
Right.
And I think they need to be someone who has to like, it takes a very strong individual not to be a monster if they're a vampire, or they need to have lived for a very long time and have monstered out outside of it, which, you know, we don't know what Cass is right now. We don't know. I think it could be one or the other, and I think that's what he's worried about, is if he turns his son, he could turn his son into a monster.
Right. Yeah, none of us really have any idea yet what would happen.
Yeah.
Either if he bit him, if it would like what kind of fixing it would do, and also what would happen if Jesse used the word. They're both
But
total.
then the look they gave, though, it was a very evil Cass face.
At the end there,
Yeah.
when he's singing the song to his son.
And when
Yeah.
he looks at Jesse, when Jesse says no, I think both looks
Yeah.
were pretty
Well,
rageful.
I'm trying to interpret that last look
Well, yeah, who knows what they wanted.
because, yeah,
I think
to-
it was supposed to make us think what.
I think so. I also think it's him kind of starting to vamp out, and to me, that last look to his son implied that he's about to turn his son.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it implied that he's just he's kind of turning his vampire on, and he's about to turn his son, and that's what I read it as, and I'm curious to see what happens next week.
Well, and I think too is that they all are feeling kind of alone and lonely, and then here we have Jesse who's not helping him out. And I agree with you this season that they seem to really try to build the vulnerability of Cassidy,
Yeah.
and in the same token, they're making to me, Jesse really unlikable this season.
I think they've done it since the beginning of the show. Honestly, I don't think they've done a whole lot to make Jesse. It's probably the one of all of the decisions they've made. It's probably the one decision that stands out the most to me as just having a tonal difference from the comic. Is that Jesse in the comic is just this very American, old school ideals character, and yes, he has his flaws, but he is that square-jawed leader, which is why I say in the comic that really does feel like it's Jesse's story with his two sidekicks, whereas this show is 3 characters and it's their 3 stories. It doesn't feel like it's Jesse's story. He's only in the episode about a third of the time most of the time.
Yeah, but it's also hard to have a Superman. It's hard to do. It's not been a very good. And this is controversial, but I think there hasn't been a good Superman movie, and I think there could be, but it's
Ever you're saying of any?
I'm saying ever, but let's not focus on that. Let's keep moving because I'm gonna make a lot of nerds angry.
I agree with you. I'll stand behind you.
I just think that
100%.
except for like the first 45 minutes of the first movie, that was good, and then that's after that nothing. Anyways, because it's hard to have someone who is idyllic hero and to make them into an interesting dynamic character. I think you can do it, but it's hard to do it, and one of the ways I think Preacher has done it is take a turn and make him someone who's struggling with his faith.
Right.
And it's making him seem not as strong right now because he's just kind of wavering between the stuff, and I kind of wish we could see the strength in him more.
Well, the sadness you mentioned, Matt, I really thought was palpable this episode for all 3 characters, and it just was a lot of moments, a lot of just like low energy moments where you're just like, this is the lull in the journey. No one really knows what their place is supposed to be. There has to be a shift, and I think I understand why they're doing it. It's this point in the season. Because they really, we're sort of getting to the other side of the arc of the season is going to be the 3 of them having to come together or break apart in some way. But it's going to drive them in one direction, one way or the other. Yeah. What's about to happen, it feels like. The Grail stuff that's setting up with these 2 agents. So actually, let's talk about that a little bit. So Featherstone and Hoover. And do we know their names yet in this? Hoover, she mentions. She says his name, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know if we know Featherstone, but right now I think it's just the lady and the guy.
Well, I think she refers to him as Hoover. I'm pretty sure she calls him Hoover in the episode. Right?
I'm pretty sure also.
I think so, too. Well, one thing's we're watching closed captions, so Hoover also started talking when he was off screen, and I noticed it said, Hoover.
Okay, maybe that's why
Hoover says.
I could have gotten
So I think they are that in the credits.
Yeah.
And whether it's... So I think it's okay.
On IMDb, I'm sure they're called that.
Yeah.
But... I love that they're continuing to build this stuff with the Grail. It's last episode was my favorite episode of the show so far. I'm just so happy. It feels like we have the comedic villainous side of the story that's now going full force, and there's definitely setting up for something big. Yeah. Do you guys think that Tulip was at all aware of what was going on in there? Do you think she was completely oblivious?
I don't think so. Actually, I think she.
To
me, she read as. One, she's been hanging out with a lot of dudes.
Yep.
And I think she was happy to meet another lady who is coming from an abusive relationship, at least this made up later. And she's dealing with her own trauma and tragedy or with the touch of the saint, and I think she's trying to process that. So she meets someone who seems to be dealing with trauma herself and is also not another dude. I think she's looking for that friendship.
Right.
So I think they're going to build this friendship between the two in at least another episode or 2.
Yeah, I think that's the angle that she was going for.
Yeah.
I think when you're at a low like that, your defenses are down.
Right.
And so it makes sense. If this was normal Tulip, who was at her A game, I'd be like, she would totally see through this.
Right.
But yeah, I think she's just so wrapped in just sadness and fear, desperation. She's not seen it.
Yeah. I also love how the superficial fixing of the apartment and the apartments and the fridge and everything that she was doing was I'm healing because I'm fixing the apartment. But in reality, she's not really addressing what's bothering her.
Well, she's literally covering up a hole.
I mean, the episode was appropriately named Holes. And
right.
Every aspect. I mean, there's holes in the walls. Each character seems to have a hole in their soul at the moment.
Yeah.
Eugene was thrown into a hole momentarily where he had his version of hell played out in front of him. So they were definitely, hammering home that name. So while at the same time, you know, Tulip's going through this whole stuff with this agent that she meets next door. Which, by the way, I love the humor between the two of them.
Right.
That's why you look like that. That is more setting up like the relationships that I love.
Yeah, between Hoover and Featherstone.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I also like how they seem like two normal, regular people.
Right.
It's like SVU, whatever. I don't know.
Especially after meeting Hair Star, it's good to be like, and these are the people who work for Hair Star, and they're just like normal people that have kind of a spyness to them.
Yeah.
But they still they're able to banter and talk about Blueberry.
We can talk more about it in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see the dynamic.
Yeah.
It was like the two guys at the Best Buy place.
Yeah, the Dork Docs.
Dork Docs. Yeah, I love that they're just like
dork dudes.
All right, somebody killed somebody. Let's look at the video. They're like, that was, and those were great guest stars.
That was hilarious.
If we're pivoting to that, are we pivoting to that now?
Definitely.
I do feel like that was my biggest disappointment with this episode, mostly because I hate the enhancing thing in TV shows.
Yeah.
Because as someone who edits videos and also works on like Photoshop and stuff, there is a big limit to what you can do on that.
Oh, it's like it's so difficult to get something that small to actually show up.
And I kind of think they missed an opportunity to poke fun of that idea in general.
Right.
Like they could just have these dudes being like, this is literally all you can do.
Yeah,
like,
it's enhanced.
This is it. We've
blurry numbers.
We've enhanced it. You can't see anything. And he's like, okay, what about the face? Oh yeah, let's work on the face. No.
Pixelation.
No, it's still pixelated. I can draw a face on it, or I thought he was gonna say like, oh, let's show him the real version of the gun then if we're not
right.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah, because then it'll be nice if they made their own fake version of it and they just photoshopped a gun into it.
That's what I thought was happening.
To kind of help, but they didn't do that. It was just they actually enhanced it. It was just kind of I thought it was a little bit of a bummer because they could have.
Yeah, anticlimactic. And actually, I actually sort of thought that portion of the episode was a little bit the only lackluster portion. It was the only part of it that was like
a little bit treading water.
Yeah, why did we just watch this?
I mean, it was funny, but as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, why was it there?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
I think it was more of like, oh, he's lost his lead. This is his only lead to
he's lost. He's just desperate.
Yeah, and he doesn't know where to go next. And then it was all a lead up to, on the DVD itself, it said made with Grail.
Right. Grail
Property
Industries.
of Grail Industries.
Which is how did you miss that? And also, why wouldn't you take the DVD with you?
But also, what does that mean?
I thought it maybe like they made the DVD-R. You know? Like
they just made the blank.
It looks
disc?
like, because there was also like
an ad.
I love the ad.
Yeah.
Because they're turning the Grail more into a corporation than it is in the comics.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of have that be a thing. So I'm curious to see where they go with it, but I kind of wish I thought that was like a big misstep because I don't believe that he wouldn't have seen it.
Right. I also don't think he would just he would just get rid of his only copy of it. He would just shred it because he was angry.
That's it.
It just doesn't make any sense.
They just I just feel like I feel like they make Jesse really dumb a lot.
Sometimes kind of clueless.
But almost like I like that in season 1. I felt that you could kind of see. Okay, I could see how you can kind of save some things and help some people out. But this season 2, I'm like, can you anything? I feel like they're painting him as.
I kind of disagree because I think there was what I really liked of this season in the first couple of episodes where they were building Jesse up as someone who was badass, knew exactly what the souls were, right? And the soul merchants. I felt like that was helpful to his character because it gave him knowledge that made him smarter than other people in the room. And the more you can do that with a main character, the more likable that character is going to be.
We always say, man, one of the rules in action movie anatomy is, are they the smartest person in the room? It's like you got it to be a strong action hero. You have to be the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much wraps up the Jesse portion of the episode because he just hangs out at Circuit City or whatever Circuit guys.
In the chat,
Circuit Works.
Benjamin Slade pointed out also, if Grail was on the video, it means the angels were working with them.
That is true, which is interesting, and I think we'll talk a little bit in spoiler country about that. But it's
so are we thinking
strange.
that the Grail and the Angels are working together, and the Grail organized the search for the replacement. And
They would
then
have
that's-
to, right?
And then
Because
that's why they killed him. And then he goes up to heaven.
Then he goes
and
up
the
to heaven
angels are
and
like,
works.
"Hey,
It'll
perfect, you're
definitely
here."
be interesting to
say
see.
these lines.
We'll have some explanation by the end of the season
Yeah.
of that, I'm pretty sure. I think I kind of know roughly what we're going to get, but we won't go
Right.
there just yet. So let's get into base predictions, sign-offs, and then do a little spoiler discussion at the end for those of you that want to hear us.
Yeah.
For you.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
so I think next week we're gonna get Hairstar.
Yep.
It looks like
Yeah.
that on the next week, and also they're kind of setting up. Oh, the boss is coming, and we met him last week, so I think he's gonna be now in New Orleans working with Featherstone and Hoover about Jesse Custer.
Right.
And focusing on that.
Yeah, I think that Cassidy did turn Dennis, and I think it's going to turn out to be a big mistake. I think it's
Yes.
going to completely come back to bite him in the ass, and I think it won't be next episode that you get the consequence of it, but I think it's going to be one of those things that comes back either this season or next season where it's
Yeah,
like
like season
that was a huge mistake
5.
and bad things have happened now because of it, and it's going to be
Right.
that's going to be a big that's going to be I think Cass might even keep it to himself that he did it.
So?
Yeah, like he might
Yeah, I
say
can
that he
see that
died
happening.
and get rid of him or something,
Uh-huh.
or something like that. I feel like somehow Jesse and Tulip won't know that it happened, and he'll
Right.
lie about it.
They
and it'll
could
come
end
back.
up burying him, and then he could come out
Yes,
from the grave.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So,
'Cause,
something
yeah,
like that.
Something like that.
Hmm.
You guys
That
got
was
any?
totally my prediction. So now I'm thinking about what would my other prediction be on
Hell.
the show. I think, first of all, I didn't say this earlier, but I never knew R's face was hot. Like, I thought he was kind of cute, but in that first scene, I was like,
And he's got a voice.
yeah,
like
I can
a-
sing. Like, you can be my devil.
Closing
It's like
time.
albums out.
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna.
He's got a
say.
couple of albums out. Really?
Yeah,
Ian
he's
Calais.
like a-
yeah, he's a
yeah.
handsome dude. I think he was. I
Oh.
heard that he was one of the guys in consideration to play Archie in Riverdale.
Oh, I can
Oh.
totally see that.
Oh, I love that show. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Riverdale.
I'm obsessed.
I do. But
Wait, Riverdale's actually
I love
Archie
Riverdale.
Comics? I thought that was a joke.
no.
Oh,
No, it's based
no.
on-
No,
It's
I-
sexy Archie.
I do. I do.
Oh
a
my
We'll
recap
talk
of-
after this.
Yeah,
We'll
Archie,
talk
yeah.
after this.
Archie with abs. That's the.
It's. we could talk
but
about
no, but
Riverdale
it's
after
good.
this.
I do a recap of it. I'm all in. Like it's a thing. It's like great.
Except Jughead doesn't have a burger until episode 10, and it drove me insane.
It bothered us
You
a
liked
little too.
Riverdale.
Oh, I hated it.
Anyways.
So all you needed to do was
die.
Ocean's 11. You needed to Ocean's 11 Brad Pitt it and just have him talking with a
Always
burger in his
eating,
mouth
yeah.
all the time, and they didn't. And then when he ate it, I'm like, what were they waiting for? Okay.
All right, Tangent Master. Let's get back.
I told you not to make me start on Jugface and Riverdale.
What did I do?
Ugh.
I've opened
What's your prediction?
What
Pandora's
was
box.
your prediction, Nate?
Yeah. So we're gonna see the Grail. I think it's looked like in the teaser we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna see Hairstar meet up with them. I think he's gonna meet the group, and looks like there's gonna be some type of conversation that they're gonna like observe so they can
Yeah,
see the
right.
power and
Right.
stuff. Yeah, the Cassidy thing and Tulip. I'm really curious about how that is gonna play out because I'm obviously with how vulnerable she is right now. The friendship thing is a good path with Featherstone. I think it's gonna work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. And let's see, for Eugene, I don't know. I feel like Hitler is going to like once they succeed,
Hitler's gonna fuck him over.
he'll be like, it's gonna be like all right, only one of us can leave. Thanks for helping me.
Right.
You got to stay in my place.
I
or
think
something like
Hitler's.
that.
I don't think they're gonna try to make Hitler.
Yeah.
you know,
Redeemable.
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I think he's gonna turn out to be a total dick.
I think I almost predict that they're setting up Hitler so much as the Morgan Freeman of this.
Yeah.
That I
he's
think
gonna-
there will be more references to Shawshank
You think he's gonna
Redemption.
ask him for a rock hammer?
I think at one point they're gonna be like,
I'd be
oh my god, he
disappointed.
left through the poster, or oh, meet me at the tree, or something like that. I think.
I'd be disappointed if they didn't.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's so funny.
So now let's sign out, and then we'll go into spoiler country.
Yeah, that sounds
Sure.
great. Matt Marr, where can the folks find you?
You can find me at the Matt Marr, and you can find my other podcasts, including the one about Riverdale, at tvttime.com.
Guys, you can find me on social media at DogLikeNate. I'm also hosting a few other after shows here, so check us out.
And you can find me at Mr. Dave Child on all the internets or davechild.com. I'm also on the Game of Thrones podcast, so at AfterBuzz, and so check me out there. And if you want to tweet at me about the burgers of Riverdale, go ahead, or anything you want.
Or Superman
Or
movies.
Superman movies. If you want to get angry, tweet at me. Go at it. It'll be fun. But I love to talk to you at MR Dave Child.
First of all, I don't entirely disagree with you on the Superman thing. I just want to make that clear. Cool. Secondly, I feel obligated to talk about Riverdale now. I do the AfterBuzz show here for it. It comes back in October.
Oh, right.
And I love it. And I actually just at Comic-Con got to interview the whole cast. So if you guys want to see those interviews, you can go look those up on YouTube for BHL. But you can find me at Ben Bateman Media, Twitter or Instagram, and on Wednesdays doing Action Movie Anatomy on the Popcorn Talk Network. So let's talk spoilers.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
If you don't want to hear us talk
Spoiler
and ruin
alert.
things for you about the comic book, guys,
Spoiler
this is your
alert.
10-second countdown to get the hell out of here
Yeah.
and turn off your phone, your iPad, your whatever.
If you're on the chat, bye.
Take off those
Bye.
earphones, but we're going to talk about some stuff. So I just want to say through and through right now, I just feel like they're, and I say this every week more and more, it feels like they're pushing us towards the Tulip Jesse thing, and it's going to be this season.
Might be, you
It just
know.
feels like they're dropping so many hints. I don't see how we're not supposed to get, Cassidy betraying Jesse early, but if they do it, it doesn't make any sense in the show.
Well, they also have to have, because they're also building up a Tulip that is not as passive as she is in the comics.
No.
Yeah.
Because the way that Cassidy betrays Jesse is using Tulip, who is very passive and is kind of just used as a betrayal towards Jesse. But now they have a very a fully developed character in Tulip, so the betrayal's gonna feel different.
Totally.
And it's gonna be a different type of, like, when they get together, which I think they might be building up to. It's going to be a different type of thing. Or you might end up having the whole storyline that happens in the comic book with Tulip maybe seeming like she drops off the map a little bit and then comes back.
Sure.
That could end up happening before that. I think we've already
we'll
talked
see.
about that.
Yeah, but that's one of the biggest things. They keep dropping these hints. And
Right.
I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to get away from
I
it.
think it might be a big tease. I think it might be like make us think that it's coming now
Got
and
it.
that it's not yet. That there's going to be a little band-aid put on it.
Yeah.
And that we'll get a little bit more. Because I agree. I think there's a few more things that need to happen before it really makes sense for that to
Right.
happen.
Okay.
One of my favorite things that happens in the book that I think that they're building up to is with Arseface, where he starts to gain a vendetta against Jesse.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like they're building that up with that whole hand job thing.
Yeah, now he really. I mean, he already has a good reason, but now he's,
Yeah, he's
now
already
he's really
sent to hell.
marinating in it.
And let's not forget about the fact that they just teased the singing career. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they totally did.
Right?
So the
yeah.
fact that he's singing now could mean he actually pursues singing as Arseface.
It's one of the more bizarre storylines later in the comic. It's just like this weird, like, novelty thing of Arseface being like a pop sensation.
Becomes a huge hit.
Yeah.
Even though, like, they kind of they had to get rid of the Kurt Cobain was the reason why he blew off his face.
Yeah.
But which makes it even more poetic when he becomes the new Kurt Cobain. But like, I don't know. They might head down that, and also I hope they continue with the Cape Fear stuff, and it just turns into him Cape Fearing against Preacher. Like he becomes the next Saint of all killers in a lot of ways, which could be fun. I think that could be great.
Any other thoughts on this side of the table?
We also have the Grail that they're setting up, and one of the things that I like is they're nodding towards Featherstone's kind of fascination with
Star,
Hairstar,
and Hoover's fascination with Featherstone.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
and also
already
just
saying
their dynamic too of her being, quoting the manual
Yes.
and like, you wouldn't be fat if you didn't eat those, and him eating the berries and being lackadaisical like that. They're capturing the dynamic between the two
Yes.
characters in the comic book perfectly.
Wonderfully.
Yeah.
It makes me realize actually last week and this week how important to me the Grail actually is in the comic.
Yeah.
Whereas thinking about balancing all the storylines together, I wouldn't have realized that the Grail was that important. But
Right.
everything I've seen from the Grail so far has been like my favorite thing on the show so far.
Yeah. But also, if they're setting up that the Grail is working with the Angels, that's a lot different.
Yeah, that's very
than it is in the comic, where they almost seem to be of opposing forces in the comic.
Right.
So
That's why I was confused about the whole disc thing, because even if like, does that mean, because the angels didn't know where God went, So then, does that mean that the whole thing was a dead end to begin with? Because, or does the Grail know where God is? Because, like, would the disc have helped anyways?
And this is one of those moments where I feel like I don't need to like go full spoiler, but you remember there's the whole thing with the Grail when you find out why the Grail knows what's going on, what they have, and I think that that's what I was thinking. We might get that at the end of this season. I get the feeling we might see that at the end of the season. It'll start to be a big reveal.
Yeah, but that's very different than working with the Angels.
Yeah, totally.
So I'll be curious to see where they go. And and I think that's the biggest stuff. And I think I also thought I don't know if I said this last week, but I'm curious to see if we've already met God. Like if the person, when we meet God, it could be one of the characters that we've briefly met. And I thought from last week that that preacher on the street could actually be a good God if we find out that is God and Jesse had been talking to God last week. Would be interesting. Because that's very different from in the comics, where every time we see God and every time we see Satan, even they look like God and Satan from the textbooks, from the only in the South, from the Bible,
the traditional depiction of
from preschool. I guess I want to say.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will see you same time, same place next week to count down the final 5 episodes of this season of Preacher. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming back, guys and everybody. Being back in town, boys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Closing time.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.